Podcast at Ground Zero is presented to you by the Apocalypse. Because without the Apocalypse we wouldn't be doing this show.
Greetings, friends of the Apocalypse. This is Podcast at Ground Zero, your home for the Apocalypse, for episode 90, Black Summer Season 2. I am the Apocalypse Nerd. He is Adam Bomb Glancy. Welcome to the Wastelands.
Well,
right.
we have got a good one for you this week,
Oh,
kids.
yes.
This is tasty Apocalypse.
I finished first. Scott finished recently. Black Summer 2. Now, we did review Black Summer when it first came out, so an earlier episode, I don't know, a few episodes ago, because, you know, there was a...
It might be years ago, the way we're going.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a time span between episodes. Well, you know what, I think Black Summer, well, you know, it might have been... Well, it was in the 70s, I think, so we're not too bad, but... So that came out a while ago, so... They came out with a second season, Black Summer. Now, we both really enjoyed the first season, Black Summer, and I could say the same thing with second season. Really enjoyed Black Summer 2, Summer Season 2. So,
the first Black Summer, just to recap, the basic thing to say is it took all the fun out of the zombie apocalypse and made it into a horror movie again in a way that I was not expecting. Very, very, very impressed.
But here's the interesting thing about that. The Black Summer series is set in the... This is coming from the guys who created it, is set in the same universe as Z Nation.
Which is goofy.
Is the goofy zombie apocalypse, okay? Mm-hmm. Because that came out, after, The Walking Dead became popular, and, because The Walking Dead was super serious. So they wanted to take it a little lighthearted. So it's set. It is technically set in the same universe because I think they were in. I watched the first season or so of Z Nation. It wasn't terrible. It was just very goofy. But I think they referred to the event that started the zombie apocalypse as the Black Summer in Z Nation. So that's where they got the name from. So I don't know if it's just name alone that's the connection, and so they said, oh well, it's in the same universe then, but. It's kind of not, because it's very different in tone. Because the guy had said that, it's like, yeah, this tone as the zombie apocalypse is happening is a lot more serious, but Z Nation takes place years later, they said, and, things got weird. And that's true. But I kind of, in my head, don't keep it in the same universe. It is not in the same universe.
Yeah, the total differences are so massive. Not to mention the way they present their story. Z Nation does not present their episodes the way that Black Summer presents their episodes. Because Black Summer is not married to a completely linear storytelling structure.
It's not, and from what I read, and it makes perfect sense, is because when you're watching the episodes, like they're short segments. Number one, usually a couple minutes each, and it'll make a noise. You'll see a name, a title, like The Alley, and then it'll tell that story over the course of 2 to 10 minutes or whatever that time frame is, and then it'll stop, and then there'll be another title, The Car. And 5-6 minutes, because they said that they purposely structured the telling of the story like a book, and each one of those little segments is a chapter in the book, and it makes sense is because it jumps all over the place, because it's just like reading a book. Like you'll be reading about this thing, but then they refer back to this thing, and then they go to this thing, and then they come circle back around to that thing. It's structured like a book, and I'm like, you know what? Yes. That's exactly what it is. Now, a buddy of mine watched it, hates the format like that. He hates that it breaks it up and they show the same thing 3 times. He's like, I don't need to see the same thing 3 times. Like, well, it's from different angles, from different people's perspective, like a story in a book.
And in this season, they open up with a quote unquote ambush, and you see it one way, and you have one idea of what's going on, and then they showed it from the other side of the ambush, and I'm like, oh my god, this is not what I thought was happening, you know. And it was really, I thought it was great the way that I thought I understood who the good guys, the bad guys, or whatever. Of course, the whole story is so murky that it's really hard to pick out who's a good guy and who's a bad guy. People are the good guy and the bad guy depending on the circumstances.
It's so gray. It is so gray.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing about it too is, also just so folks know, it's 8 episodes. Just as a side note, it's 8 episodes, just like the first season. So you have 8 episodes to get through, and
they're like 47 to 34 minutes long. They're about that range.
Yeah, it's like 35 to 45, depending. And also, folks, spoiler alert. We're going to try not to be too spoilery as much as possible, but we're going to leak stuff through. So just be prepared. If you haven't watched it yet, maybe tune out until you've watched it. But we're going to try not to, but we're going to dump some stuff, obviously. But oh yeah, I love seeing it at the different angles, and I love that format of like telling it like a book.
Something else about it. It's quiet. There's the amount of dialogue is not super huge, and I found that if I tried to do something else, I've got the internet going or some shit, I lose everything. I have to watch Black Summer riveted to the screen, watching everything that's happening, because if I let my attention drift, the people who made this made visual storytelling, and so they won't have somebody say, I'm upset. They'll just show you their reactions. People will just be what they are and then, act on it or whatever. And so
there's a lot of that takes place, especially later on when they're at the hotel, that there's no dialogue. It's all just sounds and sights telling the story, and it's creepy as fuck. Because again, there's no people, but also people are being quiet because they don't want to hear the fucking zombies. And the thing, to circle back to that first ambush, that firefight, holy fuck, dude. It was like the fight's going bad for either side, but it gets worse as people are getting shot, because in this universe, when you die, it is an insta fucking zombie. It's like within seconds, they're up.
Less than seconds, because remember, there's a scene where someone is shot in the chest with a shotgun. They fall forward and they catch themselves on the edge of the table. They haven't even hit the ground yet. They kind of like stiff-armed the table, locked their elbow, and they went from, oh, I'm shot, to immediately their head snapped up and they're a zombie. They were dead before they hit the ground, and they turned. And I was like, oh my God, fucking hell. Shooting people does not improve the situation. Holy shit, it is bad.
Oh, that whole firefight, like, it's like they're fighting these other people, and then they're fighting zombies that they're creating on top of that. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, there are no zombies around at the start of the firefight, and they're just manufacturing them during the firefight. If someone's wounded and is gasping out their last, somebody has to run over and headshot them or beat them in the head, or they will be up and they will be biting and infecting and killing people. And these zombies, boy, they're a threat. The quickness of which they turn, the full speed zombie, scared the shit out of me. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, and they're the full speed zombie, which again, we've had the debate and people many times, fast versus slow zombies, and I am not against fast zombies like I was years ago. I was more of a purist, but again, we've had this discussion, and logically, fast zombies make sense to me now. Like after seeing it, they're people are like, oh, they're superhuman, and this. No, they're not. They're just us with no limitations.
Yeah, with no pain receptors.
No
Where
limitations.
they're going face first through a window, and it's like, oh, I have a piece of glass stuck in my eye. I don't care. I just don't care. I have no pain receptors. I've broken all the bones in my hand. Whatever. They just, they don't get tired. Their feet don't hurt. Yeah, that's bad. That's super bad news. And it seems superhuman, but it's just the human body with no pain receptors. And, it's
no
bad.
limits. No limits. Well, yeah, because we see that as an example. There's a part where, because it's not in the summer anymore. It's winter. It's the beginning of winter, and there's snow. It's cold in this.
These people are going up into the mountains, and the higher up they get,
the colder it gets. And we do see that. We've talked about this before, and they paid attention. Cold zombies don't move so fast because they're getting the meat is frozen.
Yeah. Yeah, they did do that. They didn't shy away from that. One of the problems is when they're killing people fresh, when they've just killed somebody, they're still at 98.6. They haven't even had time to cool down yet. So, Son of a bitch, they're still warm enough to move. And they're all wearing winter clothes to hold their body heat in. So it takes a long time for the cold to stop a zombie when they're bundled up and they're freshly dead.
And they don't stop because there's in part of in the series, there's a guy who's trying to get away from he's got a hurt leg or something. He's trying to get away from a zombie that's basically crawling after him. And this goes on for 2 days, and he's just trying to stay ahead of this thing because this thing is not stopping.
Yeah, they make the zombies' relentlessness, a really brutal point. Of course, the humans are just as relentless, and I got to tell you, one of the things that was really interesting about this latest one is there's sort of three groups in the story. There's some of the main characters from first season who
we have basically we have I think it's the same people at the end in the stadium. It's the woman with her child,
Rose and Anna, and Spears,
but then there's also the Asian woman, son who didn't speak English or one or two words.
Yes,
they are still in this, but in the story they eventually are not together anymore. So that's why you wind up with these different stories. And the thing is, you don't know that they're not. It's like a book, and it's kind of jumps around, and it's interesting to see where and how things happen.
You see them separated before you see how they get separated. And so there's that group. And then there's another group that's sort of run by this ex-cop named Ray Nazari, Officer Ray Nazari. And he's got this group of these survivalist-looking guys. There's a lot of older guys in their 50s and 60s. His team looks mostly white, a lot of beards, a lot of survivalist gear. I thought they were going to turn out to be white supremacists, but I never heard anybody say any racist bullshit while they were doing their shit, which I was kind of, happy about, that this was not even a factor at this point in how horrible things were. Whatever they started out as, they're just humans trying to stay alive at this point. So there's his team of these kind of classic survivalist types.
They look like survivalists, or maybe some ex-military, older ex-military folks who, because these guys knew they presented them saying that they knew what they were doing.
They're a smaller group, but you could see them using the hand signals and shit, and they sort of worked like they had practiced, or at least they worked like they had been in a team before.
Yeah.
So you're right. It really looked like ex-military, or at least maybe guys who were militia guys who'd practiced together. And the other group is just like a group of urban raiders, people who've come together to steal goods and find supplies as a group, right? And
but they're even as a group, they're not even really together. You know, like 'cause there's a lot of infighting and a lot of like fuck you. You know.
Yeah, they're barely led, but they're kind of led by a character named Mance, this African American guy who I would like to give immense credit for being possibly the most zombie killingest guy in the whole series. Because holy shit, that's an amazing ending. We'll just leave it at that. Check it out. But he ends up with various characters in his group, and these three groups were all maneuvering around this kind of weird thing, this airplane that keeps flying over and dropping supplies. And sometimes people are fighting over the supply drops, but also everyone wants to know where the airplane came from and can it get them out of there. If it's dropping supplies, are the supplies coming from a safe place? Is there an area that's secure? How can they get to the aircraft? How can they find the airfield it's operating from? And that sort of dominates everything that's happening is these groups want to get to the airfield, and there's not going to be enough room for everybody on the plane.
Well, and that was the fantastic thing when we first became aware of the airplane was this, the beginning, this battle is going on. You know, they're shooting at each other, people are dying, zombies, then all of a sudden you hear an airplane, everybody stops.
Yes.
Every single one of the people stop, and they all just kind of look up and watch it go by. And then once it's gone, just right back to what they were doing.
Yeah, exactly. That was a great moment where it was like, "There's airplanes? I mean, there are still airplanes? Holy shit!" And yeah, the different groups were interesting to me because there are some terrible people in each group, but the groups as a whole are not terrible. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? There's bad actors and bad individuals. But each group is not like everything's gray. It's all murky and gray. Everyone's doing their best not to get killed by zombies and survive, and to get out of this. And so it was. I thought it was fascinating. That it was so. The show didn't pick a side, even when it comes to our main characters, who do some unbelievably horrible, ruthless shit during this story. Oh, they really do.
Oh, they do. And there's this one. Okay, folks, I am spoiling this, so I'm letting you know if you want to skip over this the next couple of seconds. I am spoiling this one bit. Okay, folks, there's a scene where a woman and a man are running from I forget if it was one or two zombies. They're running and they're in like a town, and they're running, and the woman turns and fucking pushes the guy into a pile of shit, so he trips and falls. So the zombie fucking pounces on him so she could get away. I'm like, that was fucking beautiful.
Yeah, that happens a couple times, and I think it's the same character because she tries it again in the last episode where it was. They're tripping people to get away, it's bad news. And again, because people who are wounded can turn into zombies so fast, there's a scene where someone who's wounded, they're like, "Oh, here, let me help you. I have to pick you up and move you. We got to get away." The guy's like, "Oh, you're saving me. Thank you." And then the person who's helping them just throws them down a flight of stairs and closes the door on them because they gotta keep some sort of barrier between them and the zombie bomb that's going to go off any second. And certainly,
So, folks, if you were fast forwarding it, we've definitely passed that point. So if you want to start listening,
we'll stop spoiling now.
Yeah. But yeah, no, there's some good stuff. And what's also interesting is loyalties in this. Mm-hmm. There are people who are dominating other people, or trying to maybe that's not the right term, but there's people who are controlling or holding other people. Circumstances change, and you'd think that they would be against these people, but then because of how bad things are, they're like, okay, they just go along with them.
There's a couple of times when, of these three groups that we're talking about, where members of two of the groups, who had previously been having a firefight, get together and they're like, so are we going to have a firefight over the supplies or are we just going to split them up? And everyone's like, yeah, let's split them up, or let's work together. And they just switch from deadly enemies to we better work together because the margins are that slim.
Or there's like once or twice there's people who are definitely under somebody's thumb, and you think, oh god, well, as soon as they get the opportunity, they're gonna fucking kill them. But then they wind up changing their loyalties and they go along with them because they let them. It's crazy. Loyalties switch like that, in a flip of a hat.
Yeah, it makes sense because it's a crisis situation. There's a person who's a prisoner, but at some point they realize they're a prisoner of an incredibly heavily armed group that's very organized, and that's in their interest. That's in their interest. I was also very happy that at no point during our story did the threat of rape turn up. And it would have been I was expecting that because...
Well, I think there was a hint that it could have happened in the house with the daughter and the mom.
Oh, yes, those two creeps. Yes, I agree.
There was definitely... But they didn't there was just a sprinkling of it, but they didn't overplay it.
No, and it was certainly it wasn't. There wasn't a lot of creepy leering at the female characters, like they're on the menu next or something. I was, first of all, things are so fucked. There is no time for that shit right now. There's no time for it. So there's that going on, but also it was nice to see them jettison an overused trope.
Yeah. So they made us aware that, hey, you know what? These guys are creepy. This could be happening. This is what they're doing. But then that's it. Then they moved on, letting us know that this is here. We don't need to over-explain it. It's just, this tension is there. Done.
Yeah. And they also did a great job making one zombie a problem. They really did a pretty good job. One zombie is a problem for 5 people with guns.
Which is crazy. And of course people were listening like, oh, fucking 5 of us with guns, we could have easily taken care of that, blah, blah, blah. Well, you don't know.
Maybe. There's a scene where somebody's trying to headshot a zombie with a high-powered rifle, but these zombies just don't stand around. They're constantly in motion. They're constantly jerking and jumping around, and this person isn't a trained Marine Force Recon sniper. They're just somebody who figured out, how to use a deer rifle in the last 6 months, and getting a headshot is not easy. And then when it's charging at them, trying to use a deer rifle for a close shot becomes problematic. Yeah, so guns are not the answer to everything. Holy cow, they are not. But so I really enjoyed that the zombies were scary again. They were intimidating. Certainly the opening sequence where they just do that long Steadicam, almost unbroken shot of the zombie chasing that guy. That was a beautifully established just how dangerous the zombies were, how fast they turn, how relentless they are, but also how easily distracted they are.
Yes.
The moment they get another thing moving in front of their eyes, boom, off in another direction at full speed. So they did that opening sequence in the first episode of the second season reintroduces the zombie threat in a really good way. I'm very happy with that.
Oh yeah, they're like fucking dogs. Squirrel,
Yeah. And they're immediately off after the next moving target, the next thing that's in motion.
Or the next thing that's louder or brighter than the current thing that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
Because, if it's, whatever, the noise you're chasing is 10 decibels and then you distract them with a 20, they're going to go for that. But then if, all of a sudden you're making 25, they're going to hear that and go back after you. They're just going after whatever the loudest, brightest, fastest, whatever, at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And, they often have the zombies sniffing the air like animals. I presume they just have human senses. It's not like they get super zombie senses for smelling, but they try and use their they're very rabid dog like.
Well, they're very primal.
Mm-hmm. And they're a lot like the rage plague victims of 28 Days Later, except they need a headshot, which is super annoying.
Yeah.
It's super annoying.
Which creates a lot of problems.
I can't think of anything bad to say about Black Summer 2. I am deeply anticipating Black Summer 3. Give me more. It's lovely, it's scary, it's ruthless, it's not kidding. It's not kidding.
Oh no, they pull no punches. It is just, it's like, the thing is, like you said, it's quiet, so they build so much tension just from being quiet, because everybody needs to be quiet, because they don't want to hear them, and then it's like we learn a lot about the characters too, like who was the guy who was imitating the officer?
Spears.
Spears. We learn a lot about that character in the second series.
His whole storyline with his shadow that's shadowing him is amazing. I was really happy with that.
Because we remember from the first season that he was captured by the military for stealing or something, and then he impersonates Spears. Is the officer?
Yeah, steals the uniform with the name Spears on it.
The Spears on it, and he encounters somebody else, and I mean, it's a little Deus Ex Machina that he just happens to have a connection. Spoilers, and but we learn a lot more about the character, and it's like, oh, that's interesting. And then him and the other character have a very humorous, interesting encounter. In their journey, which we're not going to talk about that, but they have an interesting encounter for sure.
Yeah, it's really good. Those are some of the best. Those are one of the best episodes for me, and it's also one of the most linear. Once we get into Spears and Braithwaite's story, it's one of the most linear. The jumping around gets less and less as the story solidifies, almost like it's
because all the
funnel.
All the pieces are coming into they're all coming down the funnel now, because where's this, where's that connected, but as things get narrow, so it gets less jumpy, but also here's the thing that I found I kind of liked too, was they didn't always answer everything. They didn't always spoon feed everything, because sometimes something happens, they're like, well, what happened to this person? We didn't need a whole 15-minute montage on knowing why person X is not there anymore, or where person B came from. A lot of times they just, this is it. They don't over explain a lot.
I do want to point out something though. Of the characters, Sun, Rose, Anna, her daughter, and Spears, those are sort of the four main characters from the end of the first season. There was the white guy with the beard, Lance, who last time we see him, he was running away with like a horde of zombies after him. He's the guy in the opening sequence who's siphoning gas out of the car with the Kentucky Fried Chicken bucket. That's Lance from the first season.
Oh, that's right.
And I just thought, oh my God, they brought him back for that one sequence. And it's a great sequence, But yeah, I was really happy that they brought that back. It was a nice little, it's like, oh, it's one of the guys from the main season. Oh, we're going to see more of him. Are you, though? Are you? And it immediately told us that this series, once again, oh, you recognize someone from last season. They must still be important. You're going to see them all season long. No.
Oops.
No, you're not. And it immediately made everything precarious. Do you know what I mean? Everything felt like it could be jerked away, just pulled away from you in a second, which is what I want in a zombie apocalypse. You can lose everything in the blink of an eye, and they did a great job with that. Great job.
Oh, yeah, and then that and just a lot of this. There was so much tension in this season, especially like once they're they get to the even getting to they get to they find a they find a location, they find a lodge. I mean that's not going to spoil too much, but that whole just being in there, that was those were episodes super high tension because it was quiet, not a lot of dialogue. Just creepy. It's like you're in a large abandoned ski resort. It started
to feel like the frickin' Overlook Hotel to me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it wasn't. It was a much more modest structure, but the patterns of the carpet and all very felt like you're up at the Overlook Hotel in The Shining, and it was very uncomfortable. After that shit where they're burning furniture in earlier episodes, and then suddenly they're in a bed in a hotel. That while it's dusty, it's not ruined. It's just an abandoned hotel that nobody's in.
But and you think, oh, it's a great place to hold up, but it's not.
Yeah,
because they're just it's like they were stressing me out being there because it's like, dude. There are so many ways in here. Now, I assume that they were assuming that, they're up higher, they're remote, there's less zombies, but still, you don't fucking know.
Not to mention so many rooms you haven't gone in. What's waiting for you?
You don't know.
Behind this door. And, so everything it's like, look, we're all safe in a minefield. So it's really good, folks. Do not cheat yourselves. Go watch it.
Behind door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3, and then the story, because again, as we already told you that, the driving factor behind the story is the airplane. So, it does culminate with dealing with the airplane. We're not going to tell you what happens with the airplane. But it does, it is the story is driving towards that. And, again, the remnants of the various groups working towards the airplane and what happens. And again, still, lots of loyalty issues still, it's crazy. It's high tension. I think there's a lot of tension in it. I think the filming is good. The way they tell the story is very good. The different, like a book and different chapters, and like it's a funnel, like you said, it's a funnel. The story broad, and it starts getting more and more focused towards the end. If you like season 1, you're gonna like season 2. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and they definitely left us open for season 3. Like, okay, what's next? Because again, it's not that. Because how far into... Well, if it happened in the summer and it's in the winter, so they're 5 or 6 months in into this, probably. Not a year or anything. I don't think they're that far in, because, again, Black Summer, it supposedly happened in the summer, and now... they're going higher in the mountains, but I think it was definitely heading towards winter,
Yeah, they're absolutely they've spent months dealing with this bullshit, and it's not getting better.
No, it's definitely it's not getting any easier. So it's again, folks, it's interesting. We like it. We highly recommend it. If you, like I said, if you like it, then that's definitely watch it if you have Netflix, or steal somebody's Netflix to watch it. So yeah, I think that's all we could really talk about this without
before we start spoiling every
even more. We told a couple of little things here and there, but nothing to. There's still so much to tell. So that's what we're going to talk about Black Summer 2. So we both give it a we 2 mushroom clouds up. One for each of us.
This is what you were hoping for. In a good post-apocalyptic, desperate survival, desperate,
and even zombie. Again, even though I think at this point the zombie zombies have been overplayed at this point. They do a good job in keeping it fresh.
They make us forget how overplayed zombies were.
Yeah, zombies fresh, right? Especially after our last our last zombie disappointment with Peninsula.
Yes, absolutely.
Because we went from Train to Busan, which was excellent, to Peninsula, and that's the last zombie thing I saw was Peninsula before Black Summer. So. Oof. Yeah, so it's definitely good. So that's going to be it for tonight, folks. So, we're still, we're going to work our little brains to see what we're going to come up with next for some more episodes. I said we're definitely going to do another off-topic because I think we have enough miscellaneous little things to talk about.
Stuff is coming out.
Stuff that's coming out, and movies. Definitely a lot of movies, TV shows that we're seeing.
Well, speaking of, we're going to have to check out Why the Last Man. Speaking of apocalypses.
Oh yeah. Isn't that on?
What's that? Hulu?
Is it? Is it on Hulu?
I think that's where I've got it available through is Hulu. I never read the comic book when it came out, but it was always intriguing to me as an apocalypse.
I think I read a handful of them way back.
It reminded me a little bit of Children of Men. As sort of kind of an infertility, I guess, apocalypse where we've pranged the reproductive cycle and it's not going well.
But let's save it.
Yep, exactly.
So, all right, folks. So next episode we're going to do an off topic, and then we'll think hard on what else we could do. There's probably some stuff we could watch, like some more movies. Again, I find movies and TV shows are better for me because I just don't have the time to sit down and reread books anymore. Because there's so many books that I've read that are so awesome and we need to cover. I may just have to try to work some of them in, so we could do a good review on them. So, all right, folks. So that's going to be it for this episode. As always, thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed your time with us, and we'll see you in the Wastelands. Have a good night.
If you enjoy the content we produce, please consider supporting us with a cup of coffee. Go to ko-fi.com/PCAGZ for more details. Keep up to date with us by visiting podcast@groundzero.com and subscribe to the blog via email.